Whole sports all plays. Yeah. Whole sports all plays. Whole sports all plays. 365, we're making up plays. You talking the game, get you through the days. We're high in the court, the dime in the lane. Variety topics living the same. All presentation, sports information. Hitting the airways, taking the nation. Sport all plays, like working your faces. Grace at the field, so tie the laces. Whole sports all plays.
What is going on, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another episode of ASAP Recap. Yeah, a couple of weeks with awkward timings here. Dustin is the reason we have an ASAP Recap episode this week. He shoots me a text, no ASAP Recap today, and my brain said, nope, there is one. We're going to make one. So we're here. Dustin, thank you so much, and how you doing today?
I'm doing well. I'm on you.
I'm doing all right, I'm glad it's Friday, and at least here in North Carolina, it's warm, it's sunny, so it's always something to look forward to. Well, we'll jump straight into it.
Not sunny, but it's warm here.
There we go. We'll take something. We got to take something, right? We got to find the good in everything. We'll jump straight into it with the NBA because, man, oh man, we have two very interesting championship weekends here, series. And we'll start off in the Eastern Conference where we saw the Boston Celtics last night take down the Miami Heat in Game 2. In a 25-point win in a game that was never really that close. A lot of people, after Game 1 kind of jumped ship on the Celtics, the Heat really in it. Jimmy Butler, 41 points. Tatum didn't play well at the end. Jaylen Brown didn't play well at the end. Is the Heat going to be able to do something really special? Looks like in Game 2, the Celtics able to reverse the script. Dustin, what was your biggest takeaway from Game 2?
I really don't have that much of a takeaway from it. It was more so that Marcus Smart and Al Horford returned, which the Celtics did not have in Game 1, which I don't think a lot of people realize how important both of them are to the Celtics and their team. And then you have to look at, I think the series is going to play out much like the Milwaukee Bucks series did, where they basically split the first couple games. So the first 4 games, I could see both teams splitting. And then once you kind of get to that Game 5, I can see Boston taking control and winning the series in 6. But, I mean, the 25-point win surprises me a little bit just because Miami typically doesn't get blown out, especially at home. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, it really doesn't surprise me because the Celtics did the same thing against the Bucks, too, last round, where they kept things close with Milwaukee for about 3 quarters, and then Milwaukee pulled away in the 4th. And then you look at Game 2, Boston just comes out firing, and Milwaukee had no chance in Game 2, so they pretty much did the exact same thing they did the last round. It's just now that Marcus Smart and Al Horford are back healthy, does Miami have enough to take down Boston, which I don't think they do.
Yeah, I said that after Game 1. I was like, there's really nothing for me to look at when I look at Game 1 because you don't have Marcus Smart and Al Horford, and Marcus Smart's impact goes beyond just the stat sheet. You're not going to find what he brings to the table just with the stat sheet. When it comes to the energy, when it comes to just what he brings on the court, he's someone who, when things are going wrong, you look to as a veteran guy, and you look to as a guy of comfort. And he makes a lot of hard things look easy, does a lot of the dirty work. Taking charges and things like that. And to be honest with you, I don't think the Heat win another game in this series. You said that you kind of see playing out kind of like Milwaukee. I don't see that at all. I think Boston has this one under wraps because Jimmy Butler has scored, I believe it was like 70 points in this series. The rest of his team has only scored 74 points. So all their scoring is coming from one source. And when you talk about what Boston's great at doing, they're great at really tiring you out. They're a physical team that's going to get down there. And I know Jimmy Butler is a tremendous playoff performer, but I don't think the Celtics let the Heat take another game from them. I think the Celtics have it in 5 games.
The only reason why I say 6 is because the series has to come back to Miami for one more game.
Yeah.
And I think that would be the game that Miami would get to keep the series alive, and then Boston would just take all 3 games at Boston.
Yeah, so I originally had Boston in 6. That was my initial pick. So it's still alive, but I don't know. After Game 2, I kind of felt that I don't think Miami really has any answers. The way they've been playing, it's offense through one guy, and you're hoping, if Tyler Hero gets hot, then that's something. If Victor Oladipo can get hot, that's something. But the way I'm seeing them play out right now, I don't see them getting any more games.
Yeah.
Well, we can jump over to the Western Conference. And, Dustin, I got to give my hats off to you because – when Phoenix took on Dallas, I was like, Phoenix is going to win this at Game 7. There's no way Dallas goes into Phoenix and beats this Phoenix team, who we've all said for a very long time might be the best team in the NBA. Well, not only does Phoenix get beat, they get humiliated, as we all know. And now the Mavericks are here, game 2 against the Golden State Warriors in the Eastern Conference Finals, or excuse me, the Western Conference Finals. The Warriors, pretty handy victory in game 1. Here in game 2, what are you looking for the Dallas Mavericks to get the bounce back win?
I don't think they get a bounce back win. I think Golden State actually sends a statement to not only the Western Conference, but potentially the NBA landscape, where the team that they have now, you have to consider that Klay Thompson might not even be 100% yet.
Yep.
Like, he's playing, but I still don't think he's like 100% back to his old form.
Nope.
And he's still looking the way he's looking right now. You have Jordan Poole, who now emerged as a legitimate threat. Curry's going to be Curry. Andrew Wiggins is finally kind of in that role where he's going to thrive, and if he would be smart, he would take less money to stay in Golden State to keep the role that he's at. Mm-hmm. Draymond Green is Draymond Green. Looney's going to do Looney things. And then you have James Wiseman, who can't stay healthy, where if he can come back at any point and even give Golden State anything, their championship window went from being a 1 or a 2 year window back to a 5 year window.
Yep.
Because this team is now restructured the same way it was back when Kevin Durant was in Golden State, where they're just going to go down there and just bludgeon you to death from behind the three-point line and play better defense than what anyone gives you credit for. And they've made a statement in the playoffs. Outside of the one game where Memphis beat them by almost 50, they have not had a single bad playoff game. Every other playoff game they've had has been a good game. Even the losses they've had have been competitive losses. Like, they've been the most consistent team since the playoffs have started. They've been the scariest team since the playoffs have started. And when you look at Steve Kerr as a coach, he's 22-2 in playoff series for a reason, with both of those losses either coming in the NBA Finals or the Conference Finals. He has a .644 winning percentage during the regular season, which is a good winning percentage, but his playoff winning percentage is a .767. That .767 winning percentage is the highest winning percentage all time among playoff head coaches. So once they get to the playoffs, Golden State flips that switch, and when they flip that switch, it's not easy to turn it off.
No, and I think your comment about their defense in particular is really what stood out, because I remember watching against Dallas game 1. You just see in the second half, they just smothered Luka Doncic. They were just smothering anybody. Jalen Brunson tried to get to the basket. Spencer Dinwiddie tried to get to the bucket. They just couldn't do it. Looney played unbelievable defense in the paint. Didn't fall for a single Luka pump fake. Didn't do anything. And so when you have guys like that on the Warriors who know, my job is to come in here and defend, and I do not need to touch the basketball offensively because I got 3-4 guys who can get it done. That's where this team really shines, because everyone knows their role and they perform at their role at a very high level. Also, Klay Thompson, I agree. I don't think he's at 100%, because if he was at 100%, he could go guard Luka Doncic one-on-one, and the Warriors would not have to worry about it. Like, that's the kind of player Klay can be when he's healthy. So, as you said, people were saying, well, do the Warriors flirt with the idea of trading Klay Thompson because you have Jordan Poole ascending, you don't want to get older? No, because your championship window is still wide open. If
and the thing is, you can get older, but Curry and Thompson aren't like the rest of the league, because they don't put the punishment on the body that the rest of these players do, because they're shooters. They don't drive the lane. They drive the lane, but they don't go like in the paint all the time where they're going to take that beating. Like, their body can last a lot longer because they're shooters.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, like you said, this is a team that's championship window is wide open. And I have the Warriors winning tonight. I don't know what Dallas could do. I thought maybe if Dallas could get into situations where they can get guys in a foul trouble early, like if they can get Klay one-on-one with Luka or Steph one-on-one with Luka and get them in a foul trouble early, that's the only way it happens. But to me, there's just no way for Dallas to really match the offensive production of what Golden State can do. And then, again, Golden State can just flip it defensively and just take you out of a ballgame.
And the thing is, too, with Curry, he has not shot the ball well yet.
No.
I mean, he's averaging 26 points a game in the playoffs, but he's doing that on like 43% shooting and 34 or 35 or 36% from beyond the arc. So he's not shooting the ball that well, and he's still giving you 26 points. And eventually he's going to get into those Stephen Curry modes where he's shooting over 50% from deep. And if Golden State's playing the way they are right now, with him shooting less than what he's capable of, that's another scary thing to think about.
And speaking of that, so I think we both have the Warriors beating the Mavericks in this series and moving on into the NBA Finals. Of the teams left, who do you think is the best team? Is it the Golden State Warriors? Yeah. Is it the Heat? Is it the Celtics? Or I think you just answered my question, but do you think the Golden State Warriors are the best team left and have them winning the whole thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I said that pretty much since the playoffs started that Golden State was going to win, just because what on our show last week I was talking about Phoenix, how they kind of peaked way too early,
Mm-hmm.
got into that final month of the season where they kind of coasted into the playoffs because they had nothing to worry about, and you kind of saw that play suffer once the playoffs started. You have Golden State, who was playing so well at the beginning of the year just to keep pace with Phoenix, and then they kind of went into that 9-game losing streak after the All Star break, where a lot of people were starting to question what Golden State had left. After that 9-game losing streak, Golden State was a completely different team. They
Yeah.
kind of regrouped. They kind of figured out like what was going wrong during that 9-game losing streak, and they got back to playing Golden State style basketball. They had the best record in the Western Conference outside of Dallas those final 2 months of the season, and since the playoffs have started, they've been the most consistent team top to bottom. Like Boston's been good, Boston's been consistent, but they've had games where they haven't shot the ball well and have looked very poor. And then they've had games where they've shot the ball extremely well and have looked great, versus Golden State has had that one game where they played like crap.
Right.
Other than that, the rest of the playoffs, they've just looked like a championship caliber team.
Yeah, and I would have to agree with you. I think Golden State probably is the best team, but just for another point of view and to just rock, my team, I'm going to say the Boston Celtics. And for the simple reason of I think there's going to be a Celtic Warriors finals. And I think what that finals series is going to come down to is what Boston's able to do with their perimeter defense. Because you talk about a lot of teams, it's hard for you to guard Steph, Clay, and then Jordan Poole, and then match up with Draymond inside. It's hard for you to play that kind of basketball. I think Boston can play that style because you can have Marcus Smart on Steph Curry. You can go and then have Jaylen Brown on Klay Thompson. Jason Tatum can play a Jordan Poole, or however you want to flip it around. You can go anywhere, and then they can match you offensively. I think Boston is a slightly better defensive team, and the Warriors are a better offensive team. I think those two teams are clearly the best two teams left, and it should be really exciting. I'm going to just say Boston just because I don't want pride to kick me out like he did when I said the Buffalo Bills are going to beat the Patriots in the playoffs. So I'm going to say the Celtics are the best team, but I think those two teams are going to have an extraordinary bout in the finals.
Yeah, the only thing that concerns me, I guess, with Boston is kind of the way they're playing right now. They're not playing typical Boston basketball.
Yeah.
This was not a Celtics team that shot as many three-pointers as they're shooting now. And yes, they're having success doing it. But is that the style you want to go up against Golden State?
Right.
Because I'm sorry, if you have to go 3 for 3 with Golden State's going to get you every single time.
Yeah. And that's where I think as Robert Williams gets more and more healthy, he's going to be a bigger and bigger factor come the final series, because if you can have a legitimate, big man down there and James Wiseman is still struggling, now you can go pound him inside and get Kevon Looney quick trouble. Draymond Green can get into quick trouble. I think the more he gets healthy, the better it is for Boston. So I completely agree with you. I don't want to get in a 3-point shooting match with Golden State. But if we can get it down low, get it inside, and then make the defense forced to collapse, get them to foul trouble that way, and then kick it out from there, I think we have a chance to win that series.
Yeah, either way, regardless who wins the NBA Finals, I think that series is going to end up going 7 games.
Yeah.
Just because you're going to have two different contrasting styles. You're going to have Boston, who likes to kind of slow it down, make you grind out your possessions and things like that, versus Golden State likes to get up the court and run and just basically try to get a track meet against you to tire you out. So I expect a lot of adjustments to be made, and ultimately it's going to come down to coaching. And Steve Kerr, to me, I mean,
it's hard to bet against Steve Kerr.
It's hard to bet against Steve Kerr when you're 22-2 in playoff series at this point, and your only 2 losses have been in the finals and the conference finals. So basically, you can pencil yourself in to at least make the conference finals every time you make the playoffs.
And that's a ridiculous stat. That shows you the dominance that the Golden State Warriors dynasty has been on for since 2015. They've just been unstoppable. And really, you could date it to 2014. Really, I think that was his first time with the team, right? So
and you can go back to even his time in Phoenix as a GM.
Yeah, very good.
They made 3 consecutive Western Conference Finals in his years as a GM there. And that was kind of that's how he got this team together, because he kind of emulated what he created in Phoenix and brought it over to Golden State.
Yeah, it's just been really impressive what the Warriors have done. Speaking of impressive track records, Chris Paul, right? We all know he has a very impressive track record. You can argue he's a top 5 point guard. Some people would keep him in, some people would keep him out. However you want to put in that conversation, he's been experiencing a lot of slander. from fans, from the media, from Patrick Beverley in particular. Dustin, I don't know where Chris Paul ranks to you in terms of the all-time point guards list, but does that blowout loss and his performance in this series, although he was a little bit banged up, does it, kind of play a factor into what his legacy looks like once he retires?
I don't think it does, because how many NFL players are Hall of Fame players that never won a Super Bowl? Barry Sanders, Randy Moss, Calvin Johnson. I mean, you can name so many of these players that were top 2 in their position all time, never got a ring because of their supporting cast, and it doesn't really tarnish their legacy. I know Chris Paul is going to have a lot of negative aspects on his legacy, but you can't deny his production. You cannot deny that he's a top 2, top 3 point guard all time. You can't deny that he's been a part of 4 different franchises, leading them to the best record in each of those franchises' history, which nobody else has done. You can't deny that at 37 years old, he's playing better now than what he was probably playing in his early 30s when he was going through all those injuries. It's just a matter of, no matter how well he plays, he just gets put in a position where his supporting cast lets him down kind of in certain moments. And I'm not going to say he played well in Game 7, because he did not play well in Game 7 against Dallas. But in his defense, nobody in the entire Phoenix organization played well in Game 7 against Dallas. So you can't really hang that loss on him. Yes, not having a ring at this point is going to tarnish his legacy, which it shouldn't, just because it's not his fault that Doc Rivers blew a 3-1 lead with him as a point guard. It's not his fault that Luka Doncic was obviously the best player in the NBA this past round of the playoffs, where this is why the MVP needs to be a duration award, not a regular season award, because Luka would be putting himself right in the mix for the MVP favorite
100%.
right now based on his playoff performance.
Yep.
I mean, you can't really put anything against that against Chris Paul. All you have to do is look at what he's done as a player since he's gotten into this league, and he is a top 3 point guard just because of what he's done.
So you're saying top 3 all time?
Mm-hmm.
So give me your list. Top 5 point guards. I want to know the Dustin. Or just give me your top 3 point guards.
I got Magic Johnson number 1 just because of what Magic Johnson could all do.
Agreed.
And I got John Stockton too.
Wow.
And then I got Chris Paul 3.
Wow. So Steph Curry not in your top 3.
Not yet, just because he's still playing it. He could easily get there by the time he's done. But Chris Paul has Stephen Curry's accomplished more than Chris Paul, like rings-wise and success-wise.
Right.
But Chris Paul, in his prime, and even now, is a better overall player because he does more than what Curry can do. Curry can change the game just because he's a pure shooter. He's the best shooter that we've ever seen.
Right.
But he's typically not a guy that's going to give you a double-double, triple-double. It's pretty much you get 30 points, 6 assists out of him, and that's pretty much what you get. Versus Chris Paul's giving you 25 and 13, 25, 13 and 7, 25, 13 and 8, doing so many other things that a lot of point guards his age can't even do.
No, I just haven't heard a lot of people have Chris Paul that high on their list. Like, I have him in that 5 range. So for me, it goes like Magic, Steph, Isaiah, Oscar, and then at 5, I probably plug in Chris Paul. So I just haven't heard a lot of people have Chris Paul at 2, 3. That was just the really interesting part about what you said. But I don't think the ring should really tarnish him. And again, like you said, it's not his fault that he was drafted by the New Orleans Hornets. You know what I mean? It's not his fault he was drafted by that team, that he went to OKC when they were supposed to be tanking. I think that's the most impressive thing Chris Paul has really ever done. An OKC team that was clearly trying to tank.
And they still won 48 games.
They went to the playoffs.
Yep. They won a series, too.
They won. This is a team that Chris Paul's supposed to retire at the end of that year. Everyone's saying, okay, it's his last stop. He'll retire, or they'll trade him back somewhere. No, he goes to the playoffs, wins the series with nobody on that team. There's nobody on that team. So to me, the rings part, I get it. Why people hold that against him. But if you're gonna sit here and argue to me that Jason Kidd is better than Chris Paul, I can listen to it. But I'm not gonna sit here. I don't think there's a way I could really agree with you about that. That Jason Kidd's a better point guard than Chris Paul.
I wouldn't even entertain the idea.
Like, I'll sit there and maybe entertain it, but if you start with, oh, well, he has championships, come on, dog. Tell me the player that Chris Paul's played with that's Dirk Nowitzki. If you can name that player, then we can have that argument. But there's no way to me that you can sit here and slander Chris Paul in the sense that he is not one of these great players. Now, I do want to get your opinion about this. I don't. I read this and laughed. I listened to it and laughed. Patrick Beverley, goes on his tangent over there at ESPN, calls him a cone. Says no one fears playing Chris Paul. And you know what? If that's Patrick Beverley saying that, Patrick Beverley, all good on you. What's your reaction to him saying those things?
Trying to get attention. I mean, realistically, what has Patrick Beverley done? I mean, he's considered one of the better defenders in the NBA, and obviously, to his credit, he is one of the better defenders in the NBA because we've seen it.
Yeah.
But he wants to sit here and harp on Chris Paul and his success. What has he done?
That's true.
What is he? Has he ever gone to a franchise and single-handedly carried it to the playoffs? Single-handedly carried it to a postseason win, a series win?
Wasn't he traded away from a franchise so they could bring in Chris Paul because they thought that would make him better?
Yeah.
So
yeah, I mean, there's really not much he can say that even makes any sense, just because his success is predicated on everybody around him. Where if he doesn't have good talent around him, he's obviously not going to have any success.
Yeah, like again, 100% agree. Respect to Patrick Beverley. He's made a career for himself, one of the best defenders in the NBA, all that. But he's nowhere near the Chris Paul level. And if he wants to say, well, I listened to the extended quote, and he was like, I'm trying to compare him to those top 5 guys that we want to argue with him with. Well, which one of those top 5 guys won without anybody? There's nobody that you can really sit there and say, oh, they won without anybody.
The only argument I would make, and granted he didn't win the NBA championship, was when LeBron brought his first Cleveland team to the NBA Finals, where it was Mo Williams, so Jonas Agauskas, Anderson Varejao, and like Eric Snow were his supporting cast.
Even in like 2018, once Kyrie left, 2018, 2017, those Cleveland teams, that's the closest. That to me is like the peak of taking a team, and then it's like Chris Paul with what he did with OKC, Chris Paul what he did with a lot of these teams. Like LeBron James is the only player to me I've seen. I'm only 18 years old, but that I've seen carry a team outside of LeBron James. LeBron and Chris Paul are the only 2 guys I've ever seen do it to that extent.
I mean, you could say maybe Allen Iverson when Philadelphia got to the finals against the Lakers, because I mean it was Iverson, it was Eric Snow, it was there was a couple other guys I can't even think of that were. Or Samuel Dalembert was a rookie back then.
So yeah,
and then the year that the Nets went to the NBA Finals when they had Jason Kidd, it was really Jason Kidd and Richard Jefferson and a bunch of supporting guys too.
Yeah. So again, that's why I can sit there and listen to the Jason Kidd argument, because I know he's done a lot of good things across the NBA. But look, Chris Paul, he's one of the all-time greats, no doubt about it. The bona fide Hall of Famer, and the rings aren't going to affect that. Something that could affect an entire organization and a fan base and a couple of players. So, we know the Los Angeles Lakers have some things to fix this offseason, to say the least. Some things to fix.
Some things.
I'm trying to be nice here. I don't want Freddie to kick us off. You know what I mean? I know that he's a Lakers guy. So the idea was thrown around, the report that Phil Jackson would be open to keeping Russell Westbrook over LeBron James. Now, the way I look at it, it is probably for the trade capital point of view, but Dustin has a very interesting take on it, so I'm going to let Dustin take over. Dustin, why is this a good or bad idea for the Lakers?
Well, you have to look at it in two ways here. Obviously, you look at the success that Phil Jackson had when he was coaching the Lakers. Jeannie Buss is going to listen to him. She's going to listen to his input and basically try to figure things out from there. And I know she said she has no desire to trade LeBron James. But if Phil Jackson can make a good point as to why, well, that's going to change her mind drastically. And the way I look at it is Russell Westbrook made $42 million last year. Played like dog crap. And his contract goes to $49 million this upcoming season. There is not a team in their right mind that is going to pay that $49 million contract. The Lakers decide to cut him. They pay him $34 million.
Yep.
So they are stuck with him for a year, so that he's going to have to be in Los Angeles next year. And then you kind of look at it outside of that. do they want to trade Anthony Davis? Because Anthony Davis is a great player, but he hasn't consistently stayed healthy. So what kind of trade capital would you be able to get if you trade Anthony Davis? If he was healthy, you'd be able to get a lot more, but he hasn't been consistently healthy. So does anybody really want to trade for him at that point? LeBron James is kind of the interesting piece here just because he's considered one of the greatest players of all time, and you typically don't trade one of the greatest players of all time.
Yep.
But here's the way I look at it, and I will use the Chicago Bulls as an example on this. You put LeBron James on the trade block, and let's just say he's interested in going to Chicago for whatever reason. Lakers would be able to get DeMar DeRozan,
Yep.
Alex Caruso, Patrick Williams, and probably 2 draft picks from Chicago just to get LeBron James into Chicago. What does that do for the Lakers? It instantly makes them better for the next 5 years. Instantly. By getting younger, by getting better defensively, by getting draft picks to make that team deeper. Versus if you keep LeBron James now, yes, you might be better off in the short run because you still have LeBron James, but you have no future picks. You have nothing to hang your hat on base outside of whatever window you get out of LeBron James. So if you're focused on the present, then yes, you want to keep LeBron. But if Phil Jackson is intent on making the Lakers better for the future, better for like the long term, then trading LeBron James is their best option because of what they can get in return for him that will help the team in the future.
And that's where I can see the trade, right? I could see it because the only guy of the big three that you would get anything back for is LeBron James. You would have to pay to get rid of Russell Westbrook. Like you would have to say, take Russell Westbrook and take.
And we will still pay $30 million.
Like you'd probably have to take Russell Westbrook and we'll pay $10 million. Like take whatever, and we'll give you this. Like you have to pay to get rid of Russell Westbrook. That's gonna be that. Anthony Davis, if he's healthy, you saw what you paid for him, but he's never healthy. So you're no one's gonna sit there and trade away their future. LeBron James, yes, we know what he can do when he's on a team that has pieces. So I don't know if you'd be happy about the Chicago move, but Chicago, then you can pair him up with Lonzo Ball. If you want to bring back Zach LaVine, you can bring back Zach LaVine, and then you let things roll from there and run it with Vucevic and company. You can do that. The thing about it is, yes, you will be better than what you were this past year, but I don't think in the next 5 years you're a championship caliber team. Because until Russell Westbrook is gone, it is not making a difference for me at least. You need Russell Westbrook to be gone to make this team a team that is going to be a championship contender. So you have to sit for him another year, and you might have 4 years of if you hit a pick right, you can bring back another player because I think you want to pair one more with DeMar, with AD, and you do that, then yes, great. But how many people are going to want to come to LA after you trade away one of the greatest players ever? And you're sitting here saying, well, I'm not one of the greatest players ever. They could just trade me whenever they want to if they wanted to. And
I mean, I can see it that way, but at the same time, I can see it as a respect thing, too, for LeBron, knowing that he doesn't have much left. I mean, he's got a lot left compared to the other NBA players just because he takes such good care of himself.
Yeah.
But he doesn't have a lot left where he can basically carry teams anymore.
100%. He's not.
So if he wants another opportunity to win maybe one more championship, is LA the right option for him? Because I don't
that's
see
where I can see it. If LeBron goes to the Lakers and LeBron is like, they have a conversation and LeBron's like, yeah, I don't think this is the place for me, then that trade is fine because then it's LeBron saying, I want to be somewhere else. But if you were to say, LeBron, we're moving you, our future is best without you, would you be right? Maybe. But the star attraction of LA is still going to be there. I just don't know about that personal connection. It's going to be, man, they were willing to move off of LeBron James. Again, to me, I'm ready to move off of Russell Westbrook. Everyone's ready to move off of Russell Westbrook. Yeah. And until I know for a fact that nobody in this league, not even OKC for one last kind of tour, is going to bring him in, then, okay, you know what? Fine. But until I know that, I can't make that move.
And I said it this morning that if I was the Lakers GM, I would be making the move, and I would basically be making it as as a respect to LeBron, thanking LeBron for everything he's done for the Lakers the last 3 years, and I would basically be like, we're not trading you because we don't want you. We're trading you out of respect to give you a chance to win at least one more title because that's not going to happen here for the next couple of years.
And if you can package it like that and tell LeBron like that, and he gets to choose where he wants to go, then yeah, that's gonna work for you. Because again, everything you said is correct. There's no value for Russ. There's pretty much no value for AD. The guy you're gonna get value for is LeBron. You get younger, you get better defensively, and you get back draft capital that you don't have. You have one 2027 overall pick that you are so like you're holding like this. Like they don't want to give it for whatever reason. That 2027 pick they don't want to touch. So you have nothing right now. So to get those pieces in would be great. But it's got to be you got to be careful with the way you move about this thing because this is not something that you can just walk straight through. It's a delicate subject. You're going to walk on eggshells here, and you got to do everything right by LeBron. But again, and if I'm the Lakers, I'm not pulling the trigger on anything until I know that there's no way I can move off of Russell Westbrook.
Well, I'm not pulling the trigger on anything yet, but if I am the Lakers, I'm entertaining it. And I'm not putting his name on the trade block, but I'm putting his name out there as a possibility to see what teams come calling, to see what teams are willing to give up, and go from there. Because what if Portland calls and says, we'll give you Damian Lillard for LeBron and some other pieces? Well, Lakers have tried to get Damian Lillard in the past. You could send LeBron and Russell Westbrook over to Portland, get Damian Lillard in there with a couple other pieces, and do things like that, and then Portland would probably just release him because they wouldn't be on the hook for that big contract.
Well, if you do that, you can't package it as this is LeBron's better chance to win in Portland. You're just not going to be able to package it.
No, I know, but I'm just using like stuff like that as an example where you have like all these players the Lakers have tried to get the last couple of years where they couldn't. What if these players they tried to get now are all of a sudden being mentioned like, hey, we will give you this player for LeBron, or hey, we will give you this player with plus picks for LeBron? You know the Lakers are going to start entertaining that idea then because they know they're not going to have another player probably within the next 20 years that's going to be able to bring in what he can bring in.
Yeah, 100%. And again, it's just you got to tread very lightly. And going off of that, if LeBron were the Lakers said, look, LeBron, we got to trade you. It's the best thing for us, the best thing for you. And LeBron's like, all right, let's talk about where I should go. Where do you think LeBron has the best opportunity to win? Given that, okay, some of these pieces are going to have to be moved, but realistically, where do you think he is the best opportunity for LeBron James to win?
I brought Cleveland back up just because Cleveland is so young, and we saw how many significant strides they made this year, and then you would pair LeBron James with like a Darius Garland or a Colin Sexton. I have a feeling one of those two would have to get moved in the deal, so either way you get one of them. Yep. You have Markkanen over there, you have Evan Mobley over there, you have Jared Allen over there. You have a guy in Rajon Rondo, who's played well with LeBron James, who they can bring back. Like, they would have pieces over there for him. New York is still one of those options that I still put there just because putting LeBron James in New York City I think would be huge. And the Knicks got a young supporting cast of like R.J. Barrett and Obi Toppin, Julius Randle, and like pieces like that would fit very well with LeBron. Mm-hmm. Chicago, just because it's the market, you get LeBron James in Chicago. A lot of other free agents are going to want to follow. Either way, if the Lakers were to trade him, they're sending him east.
Yeah, so you 100%. They're not keeping him in the West.
I mean, I think he would work well with Luka in Dallas, but there's no way the Lakers would.
I don't know if he'd work well with Luka in Dallas.
I think he would.
And my only thing would be Luka's going to be so on the ball that LeBron then has to basically convert to being a spot-up shooter, which he's gotten a lot better at, but I don't know if he can make a living just as a spot-up shooter.
Yeah.
And I like the Cleveland one, to be honest with you. If they could package up, probably Karis LeVert, Darius Garland.
LeVert, Sexton, or Garland, whatever one they want to get rid of, and then they have Markkanen, Mobley, and Jared Allen, package one of their three bigs.
Yep.
Plus picks. And then
picks.
Basically, you can roll with LeBron, the other two guys that you keep, and then Rondo's in there. So yeah,
Kevin Love is there.
Yep.
His boy CD Osman, who he had a lot of fun with before he left, and it's like kind of one last tour of Cleveland before he goes. That would be interesting. But again, all this hinges upon if, to me at least, if there is any deal out there for Russell Westbrook, if they can convince any team take on his contract, we will give you 10 million. We will give you this. Just take it on his contract, and we can work things out. Until they know they can't do that, to me, I don't touch anything on my roster.
If any GM takes on that $49 million contract, they should be fired on the spot.
You don't think OKC would be willing to take that on?
No. Now, when you look at Shai Gilgeous-Alexander,
Mhm.
now when you look at that, I think his name is Josh Giddey,
Yeah,
if I
Giddey.
remember right, and
Yep.
the development that Giddey had. Bringing in a guy like Westbrook, you're taking playing time away from Giddey. You're taking playing time away from Gilgeous-Alexander, and that's just going to make their development like a lot less just because now they're not getting on the court as much.
Okay.
And ultimately, when you have a young team, you want these players to develop and turn into players. Obviously, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's turned into a great player. But Giddey looks like he's going to be a good player, so you bring in Westbrook. Giddey's now your third option. He's your number 2 option right now.
Would you be opposed to saying, Russ, just ride the bench for us? You said you
won't
come
do it.
off the bench.
He won't do it. You know he won't do it. He had an issue doing it this year.
Yeah, that's true. That's very much true.
Honestly, the only place that if you're going to honestly send him back to Houston.
That's what I was about to say. Houston with Jalen Green, right? They drafted Jalen Green, and
Yeah.
they
Send
don't
him
really
back
have
to
a
Houston.
guard. So
You get 1 year out of him. Send him back to Houston. Get what you can get out of him.
yeah, and if you're Houston, I'm gonna sit here and say why not? Just because, okay, you're gonna get butts and seats because people are gonna want to come see Russell Westbrook, and maybe you get a veteran presence in the locker room. Maybe not the greatest, but a veteran presence in the locker room for Jalen Green, and you get 1 year out of him. Then you move on and you work like that. But to me, that's the only situation is going to be, whether that's Detroit, whether that's Houston. It's going to be a bad team with a lot of young pieces, and you're going to have to hope that they're just willing to take on a contract for no reason for a year.
Yeah.
And the Lakers are in a bind, man. That one trade might just cost them a couple championships. To be quite honest with you, if you go back and you make that, if they don't make that trade, you talk about DeMar in a Laker uniform, Caruso still in a Laker uniform. You still have KCP. Buddy Hield could possibly be there. You might get rid of Kuzma. Kuzma could still be there. There's
plus $9 extra million to play with because DeRozan, Caruso, and Buddy Hield together made $35 million, and Westbrook was getting 47 or 42 million on his own.
So there you go. And again, and I'm not saying that team wins a championship, but that team's in the playoffs. That team's competing, and if you find a way to get somebody, another good role player, and someone steps up, boom, you're back. So that one trade to me is going to end up costing them at least one championship. I think if they don't trade for Russell Westbrook, they win one championship. If
they don't trade for Russell Westbrook, the starting 5 would have been Caruso, Hield, DeRozan, LeBron, and Davis. That would have been your starting 5.
That's a scary starting 5, and then you still have a lot of depth coming off the bench.
Yeah, that would have been your starting 5, and then the trades they would have made in season would have been basically to get better off the bench.
And you could have definitely gotten better. So again, to me, that one trade of Russell Westbrook cost them at least one championship, if not 2. And that's good. You got to hold that one if you're a Lakers fan. And the future now, it is a rocky road. But we're going to transition into the NFL, or not the NFL. We're going to transition into football and talk about the XFL, because the XFL gets a big-time TV deal with ESPN. All their games will be broadcasted by Disney. There's a big influence that Dustin and I talked about pre-show. The Rock, of course, is the owner of the XFL, and yeah, as one of the biggest actors for Disney, I'm sure he said, "Look, just put it on there. Just do this for me."
I mean, he was the highest grossing actor in over the last 3 years. He's the highest grossing actor. Exactly. He's made over $400 million, and a large chunk of that is from Disney movies and other stuff.
Yep, and he's got some pull. He's got some pull. Dustin, I want to ask you, what does it mean for the XFL and all of these other expansion leagues that you're seeing the XFL get a big-time TV deal on ESPN?
Well, for one, it means it's going to be the end of any future spring league that wants to come into the mix. Just because right now the USFL, I think their contracts are $40,000 contracts.
Yeah.
And then they pay half of your hotel stays because all their games are in one city. So if you're there, 10 weeks, $300 to $400 a week, you're looking at, what is that, 4,000? So they're paying an additional $2,000 to $3,000 in hotel stays. The Rock has already said minimum contracts are going to be 75 to 80,000. So you're already looking at double contracts. Hotel costs are going to be covered. Food and lodging, other stuff is going to be covered, and all the stuff that all these other spring leagues never covered. He's pretty much going to cover out of his own pocket just because he can afford it.
Yeah.
And then you bring in the whole ESPN Disney TV deal. Well, that's going to bring in more XFL money. That's going to allow the XFL to add more teams, whether it's expansion, whether it's just adding more teams by taking teams from the USFL or taking teams out of the CFL and just bringing them into the league. It's going to be able to allow more players. It's going to be able to pay players more. And eventually you're probably going to have that feeder league that the NFL has kind of been toying with the last couple of years just without any success, where you might be able to, instead of all these 8-team spring leagues like we've had, you might be able to get a 14 to 16 team spring league and actually have it be a legitimate feeder league where two organizations in the NFL share one organization in the XFL and do it how the NBA does it with the G League. Give them these two-way contracts where if they had success in the XFL, sign them to a two-way deal where if they do well in the NFL, you keep them. If they don't do well, you send them back to that XFL team for another year and see what you can get out of them.
Yeah, it's big for the XFL because they are really making a name, and we talked about it a couple of weeks ago. How the XFL, the star power that The Rock has, the pull that he has, and the pockets that he has is going to be huge. When you look at these other leagues, you kind of look at them as faceless. You don't have that big time owner, which is fine for the NFL, but when you look at these expansion leagues, you need that face that's going to drive things. You need that person that's going to make things happen, and The Rock's going to make things happen. You mentioned the USFL right now are paying $75 toward a daily 150 hotel room rate. So you couple that up for 10 weeks, that is what it is. They're only paying a couple $2,000 out of it. But we look at what the XFL is going to bring now. You're talking, like you said, the ESPN TV deal. The Rock is going to have plenty of pull, and that he's going to get a lot of people out to those games in terms of, I'm sure he could convince some of his co-stars, hey, come to an XFL game. Hey, can you do this for me? Can you, hop in the booth? Can you hype up the crowd? He's got a lot of those people. He's got WWE connections. I'm sure, you're talking about a guy in Vince McMahon who started the XFL. I'm sure he's going to want to get his finger in there, and he's going to have some ideas to bring back. He's got so many connections. To me, the XFL is the league that's going to hit. It has to hit because they've poured so much into it. ESPN is going to be streaming it. And for the USFL, who really underwhelmed in year one, it's kind of the nail in the coffin. You had everything in Birmingham. You didn't make it so everybody in the country felt a part of it. And your TV ratings weren't that great. The game was all right at certain times, but you didn't really have that product that was really pulling people. The XFL, I promise, if the football is not good, everything else will be good.
And the thing with the XFL is we saw when the XFL came back in 2020 before they shut down because of COVID, not only were they getting good viewership on TV, but they were getting 20 to 25,000 fans in attendance every week because it was actually a good product to watch.
Yeah.
Go back to the AAF the year before that, their TV ratings were okay. The fan attendance was okay at San Antonio and a couple of these other stadiums. But it took like 6 or 7 weeks for the fan following to actually get behind these teams because the product wasn't that great the first month of the season, and it kind of took a little bit while. And then look at this year. TV ratings on the USFL are going to be what they are because people will watch football no matter what the product is.
Right.
But having all those games in Birmingham, unless the Birmingham Stallions are playing, they're getting 800 people to a game. And these tickets are $10 tickets. When Birmingham plays, they're getting kind of like that 15 to 20,000 people range just because it's the hometown team. You're going to get 15 to 20,000. But I think what game was it last weekend? Was it Houston and Tampa Bay? I think it was the last game of the weekend.
I believe
417 people were at that game, and these tickets are only $10.
If you can't convince people to come out for
$10
tickets. $10. You can't go to a movie for $10. Like, you think you have to find a really good theater to go to a movie for $10. You can watch a whole football game for $10 in Alabama.
You can watch 4 football games for $40. over the course of a weekend if you really wanted to. If you wanted to watch every single game over the course of the weekend, it would probably cost you for 4 football games, one person obviously. It would probably cost you $150 total for 4 games. And you're looking at your 4 tickets for $40. You're looking at parking, whatever that costs, probably another $10 a day. So you're looking at $40 there, and then $70 for food and drinks. It would cost you literally $150 for 4 games over the course of a weekend. When you look at what an NFL regular season ticket costs, that's probably $150 a ticket on a cheap side.
Yeah.
So you're literally getting 4 games for the price of one NFL ticket, not even counting the parking in the NFL, not even counting the food in the NFL. Like everything that you need for one football game, you're getting over 4 games. And you can only get 400 people at a game because nobody from Alabama cares about somebody from Pittsburgh. Nobody from Alabama cares about somebody from Houston. The only time they show up is when Birmingham plays, and even then it's a struggle to get 15,000 people there.
And it's just because the product wasn't that great either. I mean, like I'm part of minor league cricket, and we had the finals here in North Carolina. No North Carolina team was playing. We had 3,000, 4,000 people that entire championship weekend. Every single day there was at least 3,000 people with no stadium. We were just all sitting around. There were a couple bleachers. We were all just standing there around. And so if you can pull that for, again, first year, no home team, and you can pull that with minor league cricket, with football in Alabama, there's got to be a way you can make this product better. The product on the field wasn't great. And when we jump to the XFL, again, even if the football is so bad, it could be the worst football we've ever seen, there is going to be entertainment value through the roof with everything else. That is a guarantee. And
the XFL actually brought in good head coaches that had like some sort of a NFL pedigree or whatever. The AAF had some good head coaches like Mike Martz, Mike Singletary, and coaches like that. But they were coaches that were past their prime and aren't even coaching anymore. So what are you getting out of that? Go to the USFL right now. You have Kevin Sumlin, who hasn't done anything since he left Texas A&M. You have Skip Holtz, who's a college head coach at best, hasn't done anything. You have Kirby Wilson, who's a 60-year-old assistant coach who retired from coaching with the Raiders, and they basically talked him out of it to come coach. And then you got guys like Bart Andrews and Larry Fedora. Both of them have been great college coaches. Mike Riley, a great college coach. And then the only 2 NFL coaches you have left in the USFL are Todd Haley and Jeff Fisher. Jeff Fisher is the only one with a proven track record in the NFL, and
even then,
he's a 500 coach at best across 18 years. So you're not getting the quality coaches that the XFL was getting. You're not getting the quality of players isn't even that good. I mean, Kyle Sloter's a reliable backup quarterback in the NFL, but he's really not showing us anything in the USFL. Jordan Tamau, who was actually a star for the St. Louis Battlehawks in the XFL, hasn't really done anything in the USFL, and I don't know if that's just because the talent around him's not that great, or if it's finally like he's really not as good as what he showed in the XFL. And then you kind of look at the position players. There's really not a skilled position player out there that I can look at right now and be like, he would be good in the NFL or he would be good in this league. They just don't have the talent pool that the XFL had because they don't pay the players enough to get that talent pool.
And the players, for those of you who don't know, are getting, I believe it was $4,500.
$4,500 a game, so basically $45,000 a year.
Right. So,
and if you sign with an NFL practice squad roster,
you make that
and don't even play, you're getting $4,000 a week.
Right. So it's a big difference. But you talk about the XFL head coaches. I'm just going to name them. All right. There's a couple you may not know, but there's definitely 2 that you know. Probably 4.
Are you talking the XFL, the old XFL coaches?
No, now the XFL coaches that were just announced.
Okay.
All right. So I'm sure you know most of these guys, but just
I didn't even know they announced any of the coaches. When did they announce this?
I believe they just announced maybe a couple of days ago. But here we go. So we got Reggie Barlow. All right. Yep. Anthony Beach.
Anthony Beck, who was a great tight end for the New York Jets.
I'm a little young for him. We have Terrell Buckley.
Great defensive back.
Yep. Jim Haslett.
Yep.
You have Wade Phillips.
That's a huge one right there.
Bob
Stoops is a huge one. Hines Ward
and Rod Woodson. So you talk about the last, like even if you don't know the first 4, the last 4, I'm pretty sure 90% of people who watch football know those last four.
I know 7 of the 8. The only one I don't know is Reggie Barlow.
Reggie Barlow,
which
yeah.
I probably will know him because I'll probably end up being like, oh, yeah, that's who that is. But, yeah, the other 7, I mean, Rod Woodson, Hall of Famer. Hines Ward, Hall of Famer.
Hall of Famer.
Anthony Beck was in the league for 10 years, 2-time Pro Bowler. Terrell Buckley, multiple Pro Bowl appearances.
Won a Super Bowl.
Yep. Jim Haslett was a head coach for the New Orleans Saints for about 6 or 7 years, and then ended up being one of the better defensive coordinators for about 5 or 6 years with Washington.
Yep.
Wade Phillips, well, his pedigree says alone the kind of coach he is.
Yep.
And then Bob Stoops is a Hall of Fame college coach who was coaching in the XFL before with the Dallas Renegades.
Yep, and he'll take over the Renegades as well, I believe. That's where he's going back. So, again, the power is there. When we talk about the names that you need to get this thing off the ground, The Rock, brilliant, running the strings. You talk about the head coaches you bring in. The player pool is going to be great because there's going to be payment there. PJ Walker might say, hey, I might want to come back and just play some spring football. Carolina, you good with that? Carolina says, yeah, go for it. You could bring in all these names, and I think it's going to be a real fun time.
Reggie Barlow won a Super Bowl with Tampa Bay.
In 2002. Wow.
Yep. He was drafted by the Jaguars in 96. Then Anthony Beck was a 12-year NFL veteran, drafted 27th overall by the Jets in 2000. Spent 5 years with the Jets and then spent time with Tampa Bay, the Rams, the Cardinals, and the Chiefs. We already mentioned Terrell Buckley, Jim Haslett, Wade Phillips, Bob Stoops,
The name power here is just off the chart. So when you talk about spring football, to me, that's the one thing that was missing. The USFL kind of felt nameless. The AAF, who's in the AAF? The XFL?
Hey, I know who's in the AAF. What are you talking about?
Well, you're stat guy. You're a different level. You're a different beast. You're the same animal, but a different beast, all right? Some people, we're just the same animal. We're not the different beast. That's all. But, man. So, again, I think we're in agreement here. If we were going to bet on one of these spring leagues.
So I guess now they kind of are leaking where these cities are coming from, too.
All right. Let's see it.
So Reggie Barlow.
Uh-huh.
Looks like he's going to be taking over San Antonio.
Okay.
San Antonio was one of those teams that actually had success in the AAF because they were actually getting 30 to 35,000 fans per the San Antonio Commanders. They were getting like 30 to 35,000 fans per game when they were in the AAF, so they proved that they can sustain a spring league. So he will be taking over San Antonio. Terrell Buckley is going to be taking over Orlando. Okay. Similar to San Antonio, the Orlando Apollos were 7-1 as a part of the AAF when they had Steve Spurrier, and basically were the cream of the crop of the AAF. That means that Tampa Bay will not have an XFL team anymore. It'll be Orlando. Okay. Bob Stoops going back with Dallas Renegades. Let's see here.
Wow, man. And the good thing about this is you're probably going to get stadiums or at least games in every single city versus when you saw the USFL.
Wade Phillips would be taking over St. Louis if St. Louis brings the Battlehawks back.
And he part of the Rams organization for a while, so there you go, that connection.
Let's see here. Rod Woodson would take over a California team if they bring one back because he was in Oakland. Jim Haslett is going to take over Seattle. So I don't know if they're going to be called the Seattle Dragons or if they're going to be called something else, but they had one of the 2 highest average attendance in the XFL the last time around. So
Seattle just loves sports,
But Jim Haslett would take them over. Okay. Anthony Beck, Hines Ward, and the other coach are still undecided as to where they would go.
All right. Interesting.
Oh, wait. Nope, never mind. There we go.
There we go.
Hines Ward will be taking over Vegas.
Wow, taking over Vegas. You need a face to play in Vegas. I think you need a face to have a team in Vegas. That's for sure. And again, there's going to be games in every single city, which is going to be the big part because a lot of us probably didn't know USFL was going on. Like I had friends. There's a USFL. It's on TV. They didn't even know. So if you're able to now say, oh, look, we have a USFL team or there's a USFL team near us. They're going to have games near us. We could go for, if it's $10 a pop. Oh, we could go for $10 a pop, which probably won't be $10. But even then, You say, okay, nice, let's do it, and then you talk about it. I think the USFL missed a lot of tricks. The XFL, they're going to try a lot of things. We know that with camera angles, with different forms of entertainment. And I think it's just going to be a lot of fun. Even if the games are bad, they're going to have
From
a lot
what
of
I've heard, you would not even know this because you're what, 19 right now?
I'll be 19 in June, yeah.
So you were 1 year old when this game was out, so you would never have played this game. But ESPN NFL 2K5
Yeah, I think you talked about this a couple weeks
with the
ago.
helmet cam.
Yep.
XFL has already confirmed they're going with that helmet cam.
Jeez
That's gonna be freaking
Louise.
amazing.
Anthony Price says, do Disney have a deal with the XFL? So do you need Disney
No.
Plus to watch all the games?
No, Disney owns ABC and ESPN.
Yeah, so the games
So
will be there.
anytime you want a deal with ESPN, you have to get the deal through Disney.
And I
Disney
believe-
basically funds all those.
And I also believe that there'll be certain things on Disney Plus. I'm sure there'll be like specials or something. But
There'll be like specials. There'll be like behind the scenes, like
Yeah.
XFL stuff, like practices and kind of like the XFL draft will be on Disney Plus. I know that.
right.
So you need Disney Plus for that stuff, but the games itself will be on ESPN or ABC, so everybody will be able to watch.
It should be. It's going to be a lot of fun. And the helmet cam is going to be really cool. And if you imagine, like the XFL, obviously the first time they came around, they bled into the NFL in terms of the things they did. Could you imagine now the XFL bleeds the helmet cam into the NFL? And like imagine you're Derrick Henry's helmet cam, and you like see him stiff arm the guy from his own helmet. I think that would be one of the coolest angles I've ever. Looking at a quarterback's point of view on certain plays would be awesome. And I think that's gonna be so. I think it's gonna be such a blast.
Or put you in the quarterback's helmet every time they go to the line of scrimmage and actually hear like what he's hearing and as compared to like what he's calling out at the line.
That would be unbelievable. Anthony Price says, "Why didn't the NFL have a helmet cam? You don't have to experiment, right? If you're the NFL, you don't have to do a lot of things different." And I'm
Bill
sure.
Belichick is why they didn't have it.
Okay, talk to me.
Spygate. They wanted the helmet cam, I think, back when that Spygate was going on. And then after that came out and all these teams were starting to complain about that, they felt that kind of adding the helmet cam would be more of a way for teams to get an advantage because you can actually hear like what's going on. But at the same time, I'm like, you don't have to show the helmet cam till the play's over. Like, run the play the way it is. And then when you like show the replays on TV like they normally do, show the replay from the helmet cam side of things. So then it's not really going to matter like what was said pre-play. But I know the NFL wanted to bring the helmet cam in before. They just never did because of the Spygate and all that other stuff that was going on at that time.
Wow. Well, a lot of interesting things going on in the NFL, in the XFL, in the football world. And I'm just here for it. I love it. I know I love football. I know Dustin loves football. And so to get more football, it's always a great thing. More football is always great. Maybe not for my mom and sister, which, I had to take over the TV during springtime now, but that's okay. They'll be okay. They'll get to watch some XFL football with me. Dustin, that's all I got. You got anything else for me, sir?
I do not. No, it's been just pretty much playoffs, or baseball is what it's been the last month now since everything else is slowed down.
It's been unreal. Anthony Price says, so was mean USFL is dead. I think he means, so does this mean the USFL is dead? Not officially.
Not yet. Not yet. They have the players that the USFL have right now are on a 2-year deal. So no matter what, they have to come back next year unless they are drafted by an NFL team. If they are not drafted by an NFL team, but unless an NFL team signs them after the season is over. If an NFL team does not sign the USFL players, they can't go from the USFL to the XFL. They have to remain in that USFL to honor their 2-year contract. So it's guaranteed that the USFL is going to be back next year. But that's going to kind of be the telling tale because they're going to be going on the same time the XFL is going to be going on. Which league do you think gets more ratings?
I'll take the league on ESPN. Yeah, I don't care what league it is. It could be anything. It could be sitting on the side of the road and counting cars. If that's on ESPN, I'll take that over whatever's not on ESPN.
Yeah, exactly, and that's the issue. Like, why? I feel so bad for the USFL because I know they want to succeed, but when you knew that the XFL was coming back, why didn't you get on the phone and try to reach a deal with them to bring your 8 organizations into the XFL. And then you basically have all the branding that you spent the last couple years building. You can now just be like, hey, well, we're just going into the XFL and just using the XFL as our name, but we still have the branding that we've worked so hard to get now the last X amount of years.
And again, they thought getting Fox Sports, it's a big deal getting on with Fox Sports, but if someone's on ESPN, it's just not going to compete. I hate to break it to anybody, but if you're on ESPN, you're just ahead of the game. That's
and the USFL was stupid this year too, because they put some of their games on Peacock. Like, if you don't have Peacock, you can't even watch those games. So what's the point of even? What's the point of even going on Peacock if you can't even watch like the game? Like, you lost viewership by doing that immediately.
And it's not even free. It's like, okay, here it's Peacock, Feather, Peacock, whatever they call Peacock Plus, because I have the Peacock app because initially it was first free. Everything was free. So I was like, great, I got a free streaming service. And then it was like, no, this one has the Feather on it, so you can't watch it, blah, blah, blah. And the USFL games all had it. So I was like, well, this sucks. I can't even watch the USFL here. I think if you're going to put it on a streaming service, you put it on one that everybody has and everyone already is paying for. Disney Plus, there's a good amount of people who have Disney Plus.
I'm sorry, I got Disney Plus for one reason. I did not get, well, I shouldn't say that. I got it for 2 reasons. I got it for my wife and kids, but my other reason why I got it was because ESPN Plus comes with it, and that's the main reason why I got Disney Plus, so I had ESPN Plus.
And guess what? Now you get to watch anything the XFL puts out, whether it's the draft, the specials, the behind the scenes, you have it. If you said, YouTube TV, we'll put it on there.
I got that too.
People would watch it because a lot of people have YouTube TV. I just think they did a poor job with kind of how they attacked the situation of bringing spring football in. And the XFL, I just think is going to blow them out the water.
Yeah.
All right, well, Dustin, it's been a blast talking to you. Anthony, thank you for putting stuff in the comments. Everybody who tuned in, we appreciate you guys for hopping in. We got playoffs this weekend, so make sure you check it out. The PGA Championships going on this weekend, and we see Justin Thomas with the lead right now. Tiger, unfortunately, just not looking like Tiger of old, which sucks. But, as long as he's playing golf, I think it's a win for everybody. Dustin, any last words you got for the people?
It appears that the Canadian Football League and their players have reached a deal after it looked like their season was pretty much dead in the water. I don't know how accurate that is at this point, but if it is accurate, Canadian Football League preseason is supposed to start next Friday, which means we're not only going to have our spring football coming to an end, but then we'll get our summer football because CFL also is on ESPN and ESPN Plus.
My mom and sister are going to hate me so very much when we got spring, summer, and fall football. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We'll see you right back here next Friday on ASAP Recap. And until next time, stay safe, y'all.
Whole sports, all plays. Yeah. Whole sports, all plays. Whole sports, all plays. 365, we making up plays. We talking the game, get you to the days. We're high in the court, the dime in the lane. Variety topics, living the same. All presentation, sports information. Hitting the airways, taking the nation. All sport, all plays, they working your faces. Grace at the field, so tie the laces. All sports, all plays.